The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. That's the wisdom of Einstein. And my oh my, does that wisdom prevail in my life at this particular moment. It rings true to this day. For the last 2 years, I have been in treatment for bipolar disorder. I have bipolar type 1 with psychotic features. I got officially diagnosed in October of 2021, and I started the actual treatment in February of 2022. So I suppose we're approaching the 2-year anniversary, but it's been mostly 2 years. The psychiatrist that I've been seeing, I'm going to be straightforward and honest about my experiences with her, my feelings about her treatment style, and I'm just going to be blunt and be real. That's what I always aim to do in my videos. For those of you who are new here, my name is Tyler Adolfo. Thank you for stopping by. For those who are returning, welcome back. I suppose I'll just start off from the beginning with some context. I had a severe manic episode my junior year of college, and as a result of that episode, I actually got kicked out of college and had to start treatment for my condition of bipolar type 1. I got put on a medication that was able to speedily pull me out of the depths of mania and restore my faculties and restore my insight. I was able to now finally see reality for what reality is, which was huge at the time because I had been spending 6 months in psychosis. So that was a victory. It was no small victory. But progressively from there, things started to get significantly worse. On bipolar medications, in just 1 year, I ended up putting on 170 pounds. I went from 180 pounds to 350 pounds. And as you can imagine, when you're in a depressed state, putting on so much weight like that so quickly, it certainly doesn't do anything to bolster your self-esteem. If anything, it only reduces it, and it makes you feel even worse about yourself. And that's exactly how I felt. So, as a result of this significant side effect, exponential weight gain, I had been relaying to my psychiatrist for the better part of a year my concerns about the medications that did this and how I feel like I am over-medicated. I do not want to be on 5 medications. That is a lot of medications to take. Antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, antidepressants. A typical medication cocktail is 3 medications. I've, posted on Reddit forums and asked other people, is it typical for to be on 5? And I haven't found a single other person who takes 5 medications for the condition that I have. And that's just the reality. I gained so much weight on these medications. I don't want to be accustomed to this idea that I'm just going to keep putting on weight, that it's inevitable for me to be morbidly obese, because I was in good shape before my manic episode and during my manic episode. I didn't put on any weight, but since being put on these medications, my weight has exploded significantly. But my concerns about this side effect, and there have been others, I'm just mentioning one for time's sake, my concerns have not been acknowledged. My concerns have not been addressed. No effort has been made to alleviate my concerns. And that brings us to today. I wanted to mention that just to, preface this particular appointment meeting with important context so that you understand that the way that I feel is not attributed to how this one meeting went. These are feelings that I've had that have accumulated over time and that I feel very strongly and very passionately about. Now, before my last appointment, December 4th, I noticed after the appointment, I read on my chart some notes that she took on me. And in the particular note she took that day, I was concerned, and it struck a chord with me because it was just deeply insulting and offensive, and I wanted to know what she meant by what she said. The note in question said, Tyler's sleep schedule is inconsistent at his choosing, and he has no motivation to change. To me, when I read that, it came across as patient blaming, as if, depression and racing thoughts aren't mitigating factors in my sleep schedule, which they most certainly are. John Adams said that facts are stubborn things. The fact of the matter is, the two biggest causes of my disruptions to sleep, my sleep disturbances, are depression and the racing thoughts I feel about things that happened in mania, which I still feel lots of guilt and shame about. So that was one note. I read it and I was upset about it, and so I actually showed it to my godmother, who's a registered nurse. And she had the same reaction. She said, that's kind of direct and cutting, and if it bothers you that much, you should just ask her about what she meant by that. So that was my plan going into the follow-up meeting, which is what I had yesterday. But then there was one other note, which was also incorrect, and I didn't want to go in and start mentioning, a bunch of notes and fact checked on notes. But these two notes really bothered me, and for justifiable reasons. And, because of the past history of our relationship and the dissonance between us, and the fact that I don't feel comfortable even sharing or opening up there, the fact that my concerns haven't been addressed. It was just so important for me to bring this up and be an advocate for myself and have my concerns alleviated. The other note was from when I first started seeing her, and I didn't notice this because I had never read it, but it said that when I had been hospitalized for my bipolar, that I was drunk at the time. And I was like, oh, interesting. That's definitely not true. That's just flat out false. Completely erroneous. My medical records from that hospital contradict that note and quite literally say that I tested negative for alcohol. What caused me to be hospitalized was my symptoms of mania and bipolar disorder, not alcohol as a substance. And that's a pretty imperative detail to have correct, because I'm actually in the process of applying for Social Security disability benefits at the moment. And, if a Social Security adjudicator comes across that note and sees the discrepancy, they're going to be wondering, well, was it alcohol that caused this or was it mania? And in my case, the records clearly and cogently state that it was severe mania and that I tested negative for alcohol. So those are just things I wanted iterated. So I went into the meeting and I was polite about it. I said, I have a concern about two notes you made. I wanted to ask you a question about it. So she said, sure. So I mentioned the first note, and immediately, right away, she became super defensive and clearly got a huge ego kick out of what I said, because she went off on a tangent about how she puts great care into making sure that her notes are accurate, and that she only puts things that people say, and that I must have said that I was drunk. I said, no, I don't remember saying that, but even if I had, it's simply not true because the records state otherwise. And she said, well, I'm not going to change it. And I said, okay, well, that's fine, but then what about this other note I have a question about? And she cuts me off and says, are we going to have this appointment, or are we just going to talk about my notes and have you nitpicking? So, now I'm a little agitated because she's just honestly being rude and didn't address my concern at all, didn't want to make any effort to fix it. A reasonable thing would have been to say, well, I'll put in the new note that you reported that, or, how about you bring the medical records from that hospital in, and if it states what you say, then I'll fix it. Those would have been reasonable alternatives to what she did. What she did is have her ego step in And she went on the tangent about how she's super accurate about her notes. Like, it's completely immaterial to the conversation we're having. But the second note I ended up mentioning, I said, well, this is what really confuses me. At our last meeting, there was a line that said, Tyler sleep is inconsistent at his choosing, and he has no motivation to change it. What confuses me about this is that we didn't even talk about sleep at our last meeting. I know that for a fact because I read the note right after our meeting. And she said, yeah, well, if you're going to be nitpicking my notes, then we're just going to not have this appointment. We're not going to have this appointment. She said it a second time. And I said, all right, see ya, and got up and left because she was threatening to end the appointment. 99% of our appointments have gone the following route. She will guide the conversation entirely, and I pretty much only talk when she asks me a question about a topic that she specifically wants to talk about, whether it be a medication change or my eating habits or what I'm doing day to day. That's typically how they go, and there's no room for me to bring up my concerns, to bring up issues that I believe need to be resolved. And that's the exact opposite of what happened at this meeting. I was bringing up my concerns about 2 notes she had made. Not a big deal. It should only have taken a few minutes. But the appointment lasted 15 minutes because we were arguing. And she wasn't, addressing my concern in an empathetic way, but in an egotistical way. And she threatened to end the appointment. And when she did that a second time, I just said, all right, see ya. I wanted to leave because I didn't want to be kicked out, that's for sure. I'll leave of my own accord rather than be kicked out. Kicking out would just make me feel even worse than I already do about the situation. That's why I'm venting to you all you beautiful people. So I end up leaving the appointment place, and I get a call about an hour later. And she says, hey, it's me. I'm going to be off for some time. Do you want to see somebody else in the meantime as a follow-up to what happened today? And I said yes to that because I am actually interested in getting a new psychiatrist altogether. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. And she told me that a provider will contact me about scheduling an appointment. But then she told me rather, I don't want you to keep taking the increase in Wellbutrin I gave you because I feel like it contributed to what happened today, which is interesting because I never got the increase in Wellbutrin because my insurance didn't cover it at the time. And so then she kind of gets caught off guard and she says, oh, well, okay. Well, we're not going to increase it anyways. So she was kind of like trying to insinuate that the medication change led to our disagreement. And that's a tendency she has, is where she attributes quite literally anything that happens to a medication change. So there are no natural occurrences in the psychiatrist world. Everything can be traced back to something medication related. If I dare disagree with her on something, it must be medication related, right? And that's annoying in itself, as you can imagine. So that's the story, and I'm going to try to get a new psychiatrist because I just don't feel comfortable seeing her anymore. As I said, my concerns are not acknowledged, they're not addressed, they're not alleviated. And I'm hoping that this meeting with the new provider could serve as a bridge to start seeing someone else entirely. I don't want to return to see her again. I don't feel comfortable seeing her. It's not in the best interest for myself as a patient. And I just want to leave as one final note. This isn't like, I'm a hard person to get along with, or, I've had 2 psychiatrists before this particular psychiatrist, and I had no issues with them. One ultimately retired. The other one worked for a company that closed down and now works somewhere far away. So those 2 aren't options, unfortunately. But I got along with them perfectly fine. They respected me, and I trusted them. And having trust in your medical provider is crazy important. Cannot stress that enough. But I just wanted to add that in there because I don't want anyone thinking that I'm like, I'm not an affable person or that I'm a hard person to find agreement with. That's not the case at all. I've been putting up with this for almost 2 years, and I've just had enough, and I'd really like to see somebody else. But thank you for hearing me vent and rant. If you have any stories you'd like to share, put them down below. I'm always reading comments. If you have any thoughts on anything I said, I'm open to it, whether it's support or criticism. Go right ahead. This is a non-censorship channel. I do not believe in that here. So I like to keep conversations open and have free dialogue and free discourse. But that's all for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new. Thank you so much. Peace out, everybody.